My father said, "You'll never amount to anything at graduation." His company never recovered from what I did next. I was 17 when I realized my father had never seen me as a son, but as a walking disappointment. For as long as I could remember, Alexander Reeves had treated every achievement of mine as a fluke, and every setback as confirmation of my inherent worthlessness. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Not my grades, not my athletic abilities, not even the way I tied my shoes. So when I graduated second in my class with a full scholarship to Princeton, I foolishly thought he might finally show a glimmer of pride. Instead, as we stood in the school parking lot after the ceremony, my graduation cap still on my head, he looked at my diploma with disdain. "Second place is just the first loser, Dominic," he said, barely glancing at me. "You had every advantage and still couldn't make valedictorian. Let's be realistic. You'll never amount to anything." He checked his watch impatiently. "I need to get back to the office. The company doesn't run itself while I waste time at these things." He walked away without another word, leaving me standing alone as other families celebrated around me. My mother had died when I was 10, and since then, it had just been me and my father, or rather, me versus my father. Alexander was the founder and CEO of Reeves Financial Services, a mid-sized investment firm that managed nearly $2 billion in assets. His identity was completely wrapped up in his company, and he expected me to follow in his footsteps, despite making it abundantly clear he didn't think I was capable. For years, I had tried desperately to earn his approval, shaping my entire existence around gaining his respect. Now, standing in that parking lot, something inside me finally broke. I decided in that moment that I would show him exactly what I was capable of, not by seeking his approval anymore, but by systematically dismantling the company he valued more than his own son. It wouldn't be quick, and it wouldn't be easy, but I had nothing but time and motivation. My father had spent years teaching me that I was worthless. I would spend years proving him catastrophically wrong. That night, while he worked late as usual, I sat alone in our cavernous dining room, pushing food around my plate. The house felt as empty as it always did, a showpiece mansion in the wealthiest part of town that had never felt like a home. The walls were lined with my father's achievements, framed magazine covers featuring his face, awards for business excellence, photographs of him shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. There wasn't a single family photo on display. My mother's presence had been carefully erased after her death, and mine was barely acknowledged. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the day's photos that other families had posted online. Proud parents hugging their graduates, siblings making funny faces, grandparents wiping away tears of joy, normal families celebrating a milestone together. I had none of that. What I did have was a father who had made it explicitly clear that I was nothing but a disappointment to him, and a lifetime of being told I would never measure up. For years I had believed him. I had internalized every criticism, every dismissive comment, every comparison to more successful students or the children of his business associates. I had accepted his narrative that I was fundamentally lacking something essential, that killer instinct he so prized in himself and found so pathetically absent in me. But staring at those family photos, something shifted inside me. What if he was wrong? What if his assessment of me wasn't the objective truth I'd always assumed it to be, but simply another tool he used to maintain control? I stayed up late that night researching financial regulations and compliance requirements for investment firms. If I was going to take down Reeves Financial, I needed to understand exactly how these companies operated, where the vulnerabilities lay, and what kinds of violations could trigger investigations. It was the beginning of what would become an obsessive study of the financial industry and its regulatory framework. That summer, instead of preparing for Princeton, I began the first phase of my plan. I applied for an entry-level position at Blackwell Investments, one of my father's main competitors. Using my mother's maiden name, Keller, I secured a job in their mailroom, positioning myself to learn the industry from the ground up. When I informed my father of my decision to defer Princeton for a year to gain work experience, his reaction was predictably dismissive. "Running away from real challenge as usual," he said during one of our rare dinners together. "Princeton will be too demanding for you anyway. Better to figure that out now than waste everyone's time later." He cut into his steak, not bothering to look up at me. "What's this job?" "Something suitably mediocre, I assume." "Mail clerk at Blackwell Investments," I replied, watching his knife pause momentarily before continuing its precise movement. "Blackwell?" Now he did look up, something like amusement crossing his features. "Harold Blackwell's operation? That second-rate outfit that keeps losing clients to us?" He laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Well, I suppose it's fitting. A mediocre firm for a mediocre talent." I maintained a neutral expression. "It's a foot in the door. I thought you'd appreciate me learning the business." "There's learning the business, and then there's sorting mail," he replied. "But I suppose you need to start at a level commensurate with your abilities. Just don't expect me to find you a real position at Reeves when you inevitably wash out there." He returned his attention to his meal. "Real success requires killer instinct, and you've always been too soft." I let his words wash over me, no longer allowing them to cut as deeply as they once had. Full story on my channel and linked below.